Welcome back! So you have just watched our dramatized reenactment of the trial of Bridget Bishop in accordance to documents that we were able to find from the witchcraft trials. We combined two different persons' perspectives on the matter who were taking notes during the trial, and we combined those two accounts into that dramatized reenactment you just saw. So it's they talk a little differently than we do. So hopefully everyone was able to understand at least portions of it. And if not, understanding the exact language, understanding the emotion. And I think that's one of the beauties and one of the great tools of doing a dramatized reenactment instead of just reading the transcript itself. Reenacting it, you can see and feel more, and it really brings history to life, which is one of the things we really enjoy doing here at the Northeast Georgia History Center.
We do love it, and of course, like as Marie said, the language was a little tricky. I know when we were trying to work this through, we realized that not only are we dealing with 1620s talk, the way they actually spoke to each other, but we're also taking the word from the page, which is what someone was taking notes with, which is that particular person's shorthand. So between the language spoken, the language written, and just the syntax was very, very different. But you still got a sense, we hope, of the sheer emotion, because these people, like Bridget Bishop, was literally on trial for her life. I mean, this was truly a matter of life and death. And one of the things to remember about how these trials get started, and this is sort of a sad commentary. This is one of those times when we look at history and we're not that pleased with the human condition and the way humans work. There was a great amount of fear because as a matter of life and death, the last thing that you wanted to happen to yourself was to be accused of being a witch, because that meant your life was on the line. And one of the best defenses of making sure that you weren't accused of being a witch is if you immediately and anticipatorily accuse someone else of being a witch. If you and some of your friends get together and concoct a story about that person there, well, you're the witch, not me, you're the witch. Well, then that starts this entire dynamic of accusation and defense, and who, based on the way the law works at the time, the way public opinion works at the time, is going to make a very, very big difference in whether you live or die.
And the character that you brought to life, John Hawthorne, was very much a part of that deciding of who lives and who dies, and who, today we have the idea of innocent until proven guilty, which Hawthorne really presumed the guilt of these witches. And how do you prove you're not a witch when you've been accused of witchcraft and everyone's already, well, if you've been accused of witchcraft, then you're just presumed a witch. How do you defend yourself and say you're not a witch? And we see that Bridget Bishop, time and time again, saying, I am not a witch. I don't know what a witch is. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, they don't it's not that these people are not ignorant, but the way the law and, church law and secular law, there's not much difference in this time period, right? They're one and the same, and the authorities very often are the same, especially in some of these townships. And so it works very differently. She's having to provide her own defense. There is no counsel on her behalf. It's her. She's on trial, so she has to speak in her defense against someone like Hawthorne, who is not only more familiar with how the process should go, but his job is to basically not find justice. His job is to secure the conviction, right? To get to the bottom of things and to see if she's a witch or not. And he's going to use his words and his better knowledge of how to trick people. And that's one of the things we kind of chuckled about it when we were filming. But can you imagine being in the situation? She says, I don't know what a witch is. And then he immediately turns it around and says, well, if you don't know what a witch is, how do you know you're not a witch?
It's like, well, how do you know what a witch is? If you know what a witch is, maybe you're a witch.
Yeah, but he's the authority, so
you can't do that.
Yes, you don't threaten me, as he said. So it's it's a horrible position to be put in, and you don't want to be in that position. And over this time period of the Salem Witch Trials, it was less than a year, right? You've done more study on this than I have.
So it really started with Reverend Parris's daughter and niece, Abigail Williams, who is usually accredited for a lot of the destruction and hysteria that happened. And then basically her group of friends all getting this illness, this disease. Some conspiracy theories think that they all had, they were all on hallucinogens because of this type of bread that happened. Anyway.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories are...
they abound.
Abound around the Salem Witch Trials. Because it's such an odd time where people are just trying to look for an explanation. And there's not really a good one. Except for that these girls were either acting or they were possessed or something happened to these girls. People were saying it was supernatural. The religious authorities at this time said it was supernatural. And the doctors also said it was supernatural. So, well, everyone in the town was like, okay, well, it's a supernatural illness. How do we fix it? Who's causing it? And then they started naming people. And then that was in the early winter months, like January, February, and then the trials started in the early spring, and then the execution started in the summer. And then by the fall, everyone was going, hold on, we just killed a lot of people for no good reason. We need this to stop before more people get killed. Right.
Exterior authorities outside of Salem began to basically get word of this, like the governor of Massachusetts, and basically say, you're going too far, stop. Because it was a witch hunt. This is where we get the term, right? It's a witch hunt, and
also the governor's wife was being accused.
Yes,
which
it's amazing how political power can put a stop to such things, or possibly get it started. That's another story.
Whole different story.
but during this relatively short amount of time, within this very small geographic area, almost 200 people are accused of witchcraft. 14 are found guilty. And
18 die because some people died in jail while awaiting trial or awaiting execution.
And then one of them was, they were all women, but except for one, right? There was one man.
Actually, there were about 4 men.
Oh, were there 4 men? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of them, the man who was executed was, killed by pressing, which is where they lay him flat, tie him down, put another board on top, and then just start stacking weights until he's literally squashed to death.
That would be Mr. Corey, who refused to enter a plea if he was guilty or no, because he knew if he was found guilty and convicted, his property was going to go to the state rather than his children. And his wife had already been convicted of witchcraft, who was actually executed several days after he was pressed to death. One of the other men who's probably very well known due to the play The Crucible is John Proctor. Whose wife was also accused of witchcraft, but when John Proctor was sitting there listening to his wife's trial, he realized the people who had accused her were really going after him instead of her, but she was an easier target because she was indeed a woman. But then he kind of was saying, no, your problem's not with her, apparently it's with me, and then ended up getting himself sucked into it and was hung as well. And there were several other men, not as famous as Corey or Proctor, but those are probably the 2 most well known.
And well, you mentioned the Crucible. So the way these Salem witch trials they happened, right? And a key thing, notice when they happened, this is pre-Enlightenment. That plays a lot into this, and then it caused a furor, an outrage, and then it has still come down to us because of the way they went down and because of the way things progressed and the way they began to be seen throughout American society, colonial American society. And even today, you say the phrase Salem Witch Trials, and in the popular consciousness, even if someone hasn't studied it remotely in depth, it still brings to the fore this sense of, what it is. And as I just said, it's a witch hunt. You're someone being accused of something that is probably not true for other than religious foundations, whether it's political or economic or downright, if you'll excuse the term, mean girl hatred, right? Which is what it looks like some of this was. But it's such a part of American history, and hopefully, there weren't that many witch trials after Salem in America. Yes,
this is the most well known in America. There is none that even rival it in America. I don't even know if people were accused of witches from time to time, but I don't know. There was never one to this scale or magnitude,
right,
in America at all. In Europe, there were multiple.
There were always witch scares in Europe. I mean, from
about the 1300s to the 1600s, and when they were winding down in Europe, we have Salem.
Right, and and witches are part of popular consciousness and even Shakespeare, right? How many I can't count on my hands, but how many Shakespearean plays have witches in them as some sort of motif to some sort of evil or sense of foreboding or some supernatural thing that cannot be explained, that usually has a hint of evil about it, and so it was very much part even of popular entertainment. When you see the witch, you know what a witch is. Heavens, that's the whole point of the Wizard of Oz, which we've done a couple of shows on too. So be sure and go back and look through our library, and you'll see some. We did Libba read the Wizard of Oz, and we've also done one of our broadcasts on the Wizard of Oz. So you can go back and see how that is even in the 20th century. The idea of witches and how they're evil and the pointy hats and things like that are still a part of our memory.
And then we have Harry Potter. That just,
the rehabilitation of witches.
Yes, really. of people liking witches and wizards, because, everyone, lots of children, myself included, want to go to Hogwarts at some point, it seems fun and exciting and yay. And then you have good wizard and bad wizards and good witches and bad witches. And I could not imagine how those novels would go over in the 1600s. I think
they wouldn't have existed.
They wouldn't have existed for any means, but nowadays we are more.
We're post-enlightenment. We're a little more open-minded, right?
We're open to witches and them being good and bad.
Right, yes. But the idea of witches, which Salem shows, is that in the past they've always been something bad. They're evil, right? Something wicked this way comes, and they represent that supernatural force in the world that humanity can't explain. And yet here's a physical manifestation of it that we can pinpoint, that we can blame, and then perhaps, even if it's an incredibly unreasonable stretch of the human psyche, perhaps we can do something about it by eliminating it.
And that's what the people of Salem really thought they were doing, perhaps good at the beginning. They thought they were getting rid of this evil. For the people of Salem specifically, it was people who were in league with the devil, who had either signed a lot of you might have seen the reenactment of signing the devil's book. There's a lot of interpretation as to what exactly that means, but a lot of people interpret that as becoming in league with the devil, of serving the devil, of if you sign in his book. And the community was trying to rid itself of evil, which sounds like a good thing until it's not.
Right.
And if you would like to go back and look at our live stream that we just did this Wednesday, it was about the origins of witches, and witches perhaps through our popular history and popular culture as well, where the ideas of witches came from, how they became good and became bad, and what we think of our perception of them. As well. So if you would like to go back, if you were intrigued by this video and would like to go back and see another video about a little bit more in depth in that particular area, you can do so. You can view it on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page.
And thanks again for tuning in to this virtual Family Day. Stay tuned for Family Days to come in November. We hope to have something very special, but you'll have to watch our Facebook and social media to find out. Thanks again for watching, and we hope that you come back around and visit the Northeast Georgia History Center.